All right, click the links, join channel, become a member here over at Subscribestar. I got a mailbox if you want to mail me some comics. You can mail me your copies of Kim and Kim. Does anyone have copies of Kim and Kim? You know, the funny thing is I think I've read more Mags Visaggio than probably anyone else. Kind of a weird connection. I've read all the stuff I could get a hold of, which is everything online. And it's not very good. It's like, that's why it gets down to 900 issues. Honestly, if they went back to being Brian Visaggio, they'd have to sell on merit, and it would have forced them to be a better writer. But because they're Mags Visaggio and they've got this artificial place on the oppression hierarchy, they're never going to be forced to improve, which sucks because I hate to say this because people lose their friggin' minds, but I do think that there is a core of talent underneath all this Generation X kind of cliche angst that is the ball of disorders that describes Mags Visaggio. It's just a collection of mental illness. Anyway, so Mags and Zack Snyder make a comic book together. Yay! Yeah, you can not send me that one. Does anyone want or really know Mags comics at all? Because it's just not worth the post. I don't even know where you get one. I guess you could find one on eBay or something. It's like you go to eBay to find hey, Cyberfrog is selling for $100. How's Mags Kim and Kim doing? Oh, it's $4. What's the cover price? $4. Does anyone want a Mags comic? Is that in demand? No, not at all. Not at all. But for some reason, you're going to get it. Their stuff doesn't say. It's really hard to not use the correct pronouns, the biological pronouns. Their stuff doesn't sell, but they're BLT, so they've kind of put themselves on the oppression hierarchy. It seems to be a kind of a fad that's been going on the past 10 years where a lot of kids and, teens and people who are kind of, they're firmly left wing, but they're just like, you're just an ordinary Italian guy who's writing comics, and you kind of want to be put on this oppression hierarchy somewhere. So you're like, some people do it like they're 1/100% Indian or a little Puerto Rican or something, or a little Asian or something. And like you just go full acceleration into that identity. And you look at them like, yeah, nobody's buying it. But I mean, if it makes you feel better, it's like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll be trans. It's like, oh, okay, that like you managed to put yourself at the top of the hierarchy because they're the ones who created the hierarchy, or they were the ones who took it over. Which I got to admit, I really I admire that level of grift where you create a hierarchy and you put yourself at the top of it, and then you team up to enforce that on social media. And there's kind of like Dave Chappelle had an interesting comment on it. Like he noticed the same thing that everyone else noticed. It's like it's just a bunch of mid-normal, mediocre people who created this oppression ladder with themselves at the top, and they fiercely enforce it because there's a lot of how do I say this? I guess I can't say it. There's a lot of thinking outside the box for this community. Anyway, so their stuff doesn't sell, but they're BLT, and so they have like 40,000 Twitter followers, and you go, but your stuff is selling 900 copies by issue 5, which is what Kim and Kim sells by issue 4 or 5. It's down to like under 1,000. So this Twitter following and your kind of social media footprint isn't matching up to what you're putting out. And then you read the stuff they write, and you're like, that's why it's not matching up. Anyway, so they don't have any talent, and maybe it's better to say like they don't put any effort into writing. It's all just this 40-year-old angry person angry at the world not being communist, so they can get paid to write comics and smoke weed. But like Mags doesn't get paid now to write comics, so why do you think it'd be better under communism? Because typically that's not how communism works. Whenever it comes, it's like becomes very regimented. It becomes very all this like, I'm going to be a philosopher and an educator and a poet and a teacher. Like, yeah, that's not how it usually works out. You're usually going to be working in a factory or in a mine because communists don't need poets and they don't need comic book writers. So a lot of these folks are living in this bizarro dream world. This is where Mags has this I don't know if you ever saw Sean Penn's Warriors movie. Warriors Come Out and Play. Fun kind of period 80s film. Mags has a vision of themselves with a leather jacket and a jeans jacket over it, and if Mags ever hears this, it's like they know they do have that image of them. So I guarantee it. Motorcycle boots, maybe knee pads for like to complete the kind of punk rocker look. A helmet, like a World War One helmet for some reason with the big spike on the top. Maybe like remember 80s movies had a lot of German sidecars and World War One helmets and motorcycles with sidecars is what I mean. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, living in a dream world, pretty much. So Zack Snyder hired Mags to write this prequel comic to the upcoming Rebel Moon storyline. That, to be fair, nobody cares about, probably. Which doesn't make sense when you look at Zur's violent, sociopathic tweet history of threats. They have a ideological or ideation of violent fantasies where Mags threatened to delete people using a baseball bat that had nails, spiked in it, to attack them by striking them in the head with that bat. Since if some people don't believe that men are women, that level of brutal ultra violence is the answer, which is weird because most adults, most adults just look at Liberty devices when you learn how to use those and get comfortable with those, and it's like that's your go-to self-defense tool is a simple 115 grain type of device that everyone has by their bedside. You don't think of like a baseball bat. That's like from a 70s punk rocker fascination with the spike bat and the jeans vest and leather jacket, which now I'm thinking about that is leather and jeans is kind of a cool look with the, kind of reminds me of, what was that Stephen King book where the Randy Flagg, he's got the jeans vest and he's got all the pins on it and stuff. That was a cool character where he's like a demon, and God, that was a good book, and Stephen King didn't like that book. What was it called? It was really long and overwritten, and then he released another issue of that book that was even more overwritten. I read it, and I read all the scenes that were cut out for the first book where the musician character is talking to his mom. It's like, yeah, that's why the editor cut that stuff out. It's way too long. What was the name of that book? Son of a gun. It was like the end of the world dystopian future, and God and the devil are fighting on the playground of I forget the name of it. Someone will know it. Anyway, so Mag sees himself as a 70s. This is a horrible, horrible look for a comic. None of this makes sense. Except when you see, I'm going to protect the BLT community and protect trans kids, and you look around like, well, who's hurting the BLT community? My gosh, who's hurting trans kids? Because if you wanted to protect that community, Mags would be protecting them from other people in that exact same community, because that's who's actually attacking them. But in Mags's imagination, it's all like Hugo Boss skinheads running around. Like you look around America, it's like, are there those Hugo Boss skinheads? Yeah, for sure. Are they hurting people? No, absolutely not. Who's hurting the BLT community? Who's hurting the trans community? Why don't we shine a light on that? Yeah, we're not. Let's move on. Let's move on, guys. Don't shine a light on who's attacking the trans. Oh, I think you'd want to protect. Yeah. In Mags's imagination, it's like they're stuck in this Generation X 80s movies, which, I get all the references from their comic book because I think he's they're in their 40s, and it's a similar upbringing probably. Anyway, so Mags isn't a good writer and makes no effort to improve, but I do think that I hope they're not hearing this, there's a core of something under, I think there is a potential good writer under all the mental issues, but they don't want to discover it, and they're not trying to discover it because there's no pressure from them to discover it because they have that trans protection. And so they're always going to get offered gigs that if you were Brian Visaggio, you would have to work you'd have to get on merit. And so like the trans thing, it's like, and maybe they're legitimately there. I assume they are legitimately that. I'm not saying they're just doing that just to get things, but it hurt your writing career because you have that as a shield. I know Mags isn't going to listen to this, but anyway, why would Mags? But it's funny. I did have a talk with Joe Glass a long time ago. I think he uses male pronouns. He went on a long diatribe on against Comicsgate, and it's like he had a lot of stuff in his own head about, kind of sounded like paranoia, but it's like Comicsgate is not. It's not this straw man that you have, or steel man that you have built up in your head. Anyway, why would Mags get hooked up with Zack Snyder when Mags Comics get canceled after 5 issues? Mags is barely in the comics industry, but because they're BLT, they keep getting offered these gigs, like the Vagrant Queen thing, which was canceled after, I don't know, a few shows, I think. I watched some of them. And it was not good. It was a horrible kind of BLT ripoff of Star Wars, and I think Red Dwarf might have been in there. Someone was posting them up on Odyssey and BitChute. It was all like race mixing lesbians, and apparently that doesn't sell. And I think it might have been even interspecies mixing, which is, like just keep one step beyond. So Mags tries to make a gay cross-dressing Superman for some reason, and that Superman character with the silicon fake jugs, and you've got like a Superman character on estrogen. Why? Why would you do that? Who wants to see that? Nobody wants to see that. It's just not a big audience out there for this kind of stuff. So fans had concerns about a mentally ill person with violent fantasies working with Zack Snyder. Mags wanted to focus on gay stories, which just don't sell that well because, again, the audience, there's just not, people say they're BLT, like kids and teenagers and people, for kind of social media virtue signaling and points and stuff, but they don't actually go, they're not actually, I don't think they're actually BLT. So for some reason, Zack Snyder wants Mags as, if he's trying to virtue signal about something, maybe because he was on the Geeks and Gamers show. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Like Zach needed to send some kind of soy globalist message. I don't know why. Maybe it's an easy way to virtue signal because he doesn't care about the comic. And to be fair, probably nobody cares about the comic. I got on. Yeah, you can not send me that comic either. Then Mags had a mental instability issue and had another meltdown on Twitter and threatened people. First, they got into religion. Like, I mean, that kind of like atheism posting. God, remember Atheism Plus? Atheism was always cringy, but then it got super, super cringy with Atheism Plus, where they came like feminists, and they go, atheism, so you're going to go after those 3 Abrahamic religions, plus maybe Hinduism, and I don't know, Zoroastrian, if you want to attack the 100,000 followers of that. So, Muslims, Jews, Christians, Hindus, right? That's kind of the world's, yeah, we're just going to go after Christians. What about those other groups? Now we're just going to focus on Christian. I'm not going to say anything more than that. Don't say anything in the comments. And so Atheism is Unstoppable kind of went up its own butt. Or not Atheism is Unstoppable. Like this guy was on YouTube. That's the kangaroo guy. The Atheism Plus movement kind of just... It's like, so you got a whole movement about nothing? That's the whole thing? You guys all... You don't look like people that other people want to hang around with. And you don't look like fun. You feel like teenagers kind of stuck in that teenage smoking weed phase where everything is kind of cool and you're staring up in the night sky, and it's like you just kind of stuck there. I think I'd rather be religious, even if I had to fake being religious. It still seems like a better model of, I don't know, worldview. Anyway, so Mags is not stable. They're telling people that they should remove their reproductive organs. That's not stable to me, but nothing Mags does makes sense. They're a very violent and dangerously unstable person with a history of violent fantasies. In fact, Twitter had to remove Mags? I don't know. Like not using the male pronoun is very, very tricky because, they had to remove the violent threats that Mags was making against people. Weird. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all over at Subscribestar.